Annie sat on the bed and looked at Sam standing in front of her. She teasingly pulled his shirt off, undid the buttons, and casually threw it on the floor. She gently kissed his stomach and chest, forcing Sam to close his eyes and let out a light moan. Annie leaned back in her chair with a satisfied smile, and Sam gripped her shoulders tightly, supporting himself. In the end, Sam fell back onto the bed, gasping from their intimate encounter. During the break, Annie quickly took off her clothes and joined him on the bed. Still holding his hair, she pulled Sam towards her and kissed him passionately. Closing her eyes, she said, "Enough of all the niceties. I need you to make love to me right now." Sam wasted no time in reciprocating. After a few minutes, they both lay panting on the bed, trying to catch their breath. After resting for a while, they got up, took a shower in the guest bathroom, and dressed for work. Before leaving the room, Annie pulled Sam towards her for one last kiss. "It was great, but we can't do it again," Annie said. Sam replied, "You said that last week, but you know you can't resist." Annie expressed her concerns about Jason's suspicious behavior and the fact that Sam's wife had tried to call him last week, which made her nervous. Despite their excellent intimate relationship, Annie refused to jeopardize her marriage. "I don't want to ruin my marriage because of this," she said. Sam agreed and offered to take a break until everything calms down. He didn't want to lose his wife either. Satisfied with the situation, I grabbed my laptop and slammed it against the wall. That renegade bastard Sam is going to pay, and if I ever get to him, he's going to die a slow, painful death. Before I could calm down, the door to my office creaked open, and my assistant Sally cautiously looked inside with a question. Taking a deep breath, I assured her, "Yes, Sally, I'm fine. I'm sorry if I startled you. I think I'll go to the gym for the day. I have some things to sort out, and I think a vigorous workout can help. Also, Sally, could you contact the Information Technology Department and arrange for a new laptop for me?" "Of course, sir, Mr. Winters," she replied dutifully. I immediately took action, putting on my coat, and quickly walked out the door. Let me officially introduce myself as Jason Winters. The woman in this video is my wife, with whom I've lived for almost 25 years. Our story began in college, where we met and fell in love. 2 years of dating led us to get married right after we graduated. Over the years, we've raised 3 wonderful children, and I thought we had a strong marriage. But recent events have made me doubt everything. It all started a few days ago when Katie Mason, Sam's wife, came to me. Mrs. Mason approached me with concerns about her husband and my wife, having discovered something that I had absolutely no idea was going on in my own home. 3 days earlier, my secretary informed me of an urgent visit from Mrs. Mason, mentioning her husband's affair with my wife. Curious and slightly worried, I asked for more information before meeting her. Despite having met her only once at a corporate event, I couldn't shake the feeling that this unexpected meeting was of great importance. When I approached her in the hall, I introduced myself as Jason Winters, ready to listen to what she had to say. "Please come into my office so we can talk," I said, holding out my hand to shake. "Thank you, but please call me Katie," she replied. I nodded, leading her into my office and closing the door behind us. "Please sit down and share your thoughts with me," I gestured to the sofa as she walked into the office. I couldn't help but admire the beauty of Katie Mason. Her shoulder-length black hair caught my attention. Someone might object that she's a little overweight, but it seemed to me that she had curves in all the right places. As I sat down in one of the armchairs opposite the sofa, I noticed that her hands were shaking as she tried to collect her thoughts. "Jason, I do not know how to say this, so I will be honest. I believe that my husband is having an affair with your wife, and I was hoping that you would help me gather evidence. I'm not sure if you've noticed anything suspicious, but I can show you what I found and we can go further if you agree." She was not only beautiful but also undoubtedly in pain. Although I didn't know her husband well, I knew Annie and trusted her immensely. I couldn't imagine that she would ever betray me or our children, but I understood that the only way to resolve the situation was to listen to Katie and try to calm her fears. "Katie, forgive my doubts, but it's hard to believe," I confessed. "But come on, show me what you have, and let's see where it takes us." After taking a few deep breaths to calm down, she began to talk. The previous Thursday, I had been in town on business and decided to catch Sam at his office and invite him to lunch. To my surprise, he wasn't there. After asking around, I found out that he left for lunch around 11 o'clock in the morning. This puzzled me because, as usual, I packed his lunch in the morning. She continued, her voice shaking. I tried to contact him to make an appointment, but he didn't pick up the phone. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she paused, clearly struggling to continue. Sensing her distress, I handed her a box of napkins and gently asked how Annie got involved in this situation. She wiped her eyes and nose before explaining, "He hadn't answered my calls when I returned home, worried because his behavior was uncharacteristic." I remembered the tracking app that I had installed on our phones 6 months earlier when our eldest son started driving. After checking the application, I found that he was located at an unfamiliar address, 15 minutes away from the office. After studying the address, I found out your name from the Christmas party we attended. I still doubted that Annie and Sam were having an affair, but the situation was undoubtedly suspicious. I decided that I would definitely talk to Annie about it later. "So, Katie," I asked, "did you ask him why he was at my house in the middle of the day?" Katie shook her head. "No, but let me tell you more. I found out that this app tracks location history for the last 90 days. I listened intently as Katie continued. "I checked Sam's history and found that he has been visiting your house every Thursday for the past 3 weeks. He left his office at 11 o'clock in the morning, arrived at your house around 11:15, and stayed until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, after which he returned to his office. It was at this time that I began to suspect that something was wrong. In the evening, when I asked him why he wasn't answering my calls, he said he was with a client. There was only one explanation for his lies, and I felt anger creeping into me, but I managed to restrain myself before confronting him. Now, I had the opportunity to take a deep breath and collect my thoughts. It suddenly dawned on me, I could verify her statement by checking the history on my security system. I quickly opened the system in the app on my phone and looked at the history for 3 weeks. Of course, I discovered that Annie deactivated the system at 11:15 in the morning and reactivated it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I continued scrolling through the history to check for similar actions over the next 2 Thursdays but didn't discover anything unusual until 3 weeks ago. Katie sat in silence, tears streaming down her face, and I paced restlessly around the room, racking my brain for a solution. Suddenly, it dawned on me. Without hesitation, I grabbed the phone and dialed the number of my friend, Bill Stevenson. "Hi Bill, I know this is last minute, but could you come to my office right now? I have an urgent matter that requires your expertise." Bill assured me that he would be there in 10 minutes. Turning to Katie, I explained that Bill was my trusted security contractor, as I specialize in residential and commercial real estate development. Bill has installed security systems in all my projects, including my house. I wanted to collect photographic evidence of the situation before confronting either spouse. Bill arrived on time, and after explaining the situation to him, he told me the steps we needed to take to uncover the truth. "Are you sure you want to continue, Jason? Once you see the photos, you won't be able to erase them from your memory," Bill cautioned. After receiving a nod of agreement from Katie, I turned to Bill and confidently stated, "Let's do this and see what happens." Bill then informed me that my current security system would not be very effective in this situation. He explained that the cameras inside the house are only activated when the system is armed, limiting their usefulness. However, he suggested installing small, high-definition cameras in certain rooms of my choice to ensure clear video surveillance and audio recording. Without hesitation, I gave him the green light to proceed. After Annie left for work, Bill assured us that he would install everything the next day. We decided to install 3 cameras in the master bedroom, the guest bedroom, and the living room. Bill ensured that he would position them to provide a full, all-around view of each room. These cameras would be equipped with motion sensors and capable of automatically adjusting lighting to provide clear images day and night. Bill also installed cameras in my attic that transmitted the signal to a receiver, allowing me to monitor them through an app on my phone. The video footage was also saved in the cloud for future reference. We now had to wait a couple of days to see what we would discover, but remaining calm proved more difficult than I expected. To distract myself, I focused on work and spent evenings in my home office to avoid extended conversations with Annie. Katie, on the other hand, managed the situation a bit easier as she was constantly occupied with her teenage children and their affairs. Unlike Katie, my family was more relaxed with just me and my wife Annie. Our children had all gone to the same college where Annie and I first met. Our daughter Savannah had graduated, while our twin boys Mark and Jeff were sophomores. It was a bit challenging for us, but seeing all our children attend our alma mater brought us joy. Most Tuesday and Wednesday evenings, I found myself alone in my office, reflecting on how to broach this sensitive topic. Finally, Thursday arrived. Annie bid me goodbye in the morning as usual, seemingly unfazed by recent events. Reflecting on our past 25 years together, I replayed everything in my mind, trying to recall any unusual behavior over the past 3 weeks, but found nothing remarkable. The only anomaly was her newfound assertiveness in the bedroom. On weekends, she usually followed my lead, but recently, she had taken a more dominant role. Initially, I welcomed these changes, but upon learning their cause, my feelings shifted. Which brings us to today and the video footage captured earlier. After the couple left my house, I transferred the footage to my laptop, sent a copy to Katie Mason, and settled down to review it in my office. After contemplating my next steps, I decided to avoid any illegal actions. On my way to the gym, I called my lawyer, Roger Security, to discuss the situation. After explaining the circumstances, he assured me that he would prepare divorce documents citing adultery as the reason. Typically, divorces in our state take about a year, but cases involving adultery qualify for an accelerated process that can be completed in just 3 months. Determined to expedite matters, I reached out to my longtime friend, Ted Jackson, regional vice president at the bank where Annie and Sam Mason worked. Ted had been a financial backer of most of my projects over the past 2 decades, and I knew he owed me a favor. I asked him to address a situation involving inappropriate relationships between 2 employees during working hours. Assuring Ted that I would provide him with evidence, I was confident he would handle the matter appropriately. He promised to take care of everything, leaving me satisfied with his efforts. 2 hours later, after a strenuous workout and a quick shower, I couldn't delay any longer. Finally, I had to confront Annie. As I drove home, I listened to a playlist on my phone, using techniques I'd learned in college to prepare for important football games. These methods always helped me clear my mind and focus on the task at hand. I parked in my usual spot in the garage and headed into the house, where I found Annie in the kitchen cooking dinner, as she always did. "Hi honey, how was your day?" she asked, smiling over her shoulder at me. I muttered, dropping my briefcase and heading to the bar for a drink. "Oh dear, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do to help?" she asked sincerely. "In general, you can," I replied. "Take a break. Come with me to the office for a minute. I need you to see something," I said, gesturing for her to join me on the couch. When she sat down next to me, her hand rubbed my thigh. "Okay, so what do you want to show me?" she asked. I took out my phone, opened the video app, turned up the volume, and pressed play. Then, I handed her the phone. A moment later, as she stared at the screen, a look of horror appeared on her face when she saw herself and Sam. "Oh no," she muttered as I watched the unfolding scene on my phone screen. Panic seized her. No, honey, oh no, she screamed, dropping the phone on the floor. Honey, I can explain. It's not what you think, she pleaded. But at that moment, all my patience and self-control disappeared, replaced by the pain I had endured over the past week. I exploded, unable to hold back any longer. What the hell do you want to explain? You don't have to explain a damn thing to me. The video was crystal clear. It was painfully obvious that my wife is a lying, unfaithful person who put herself and some insignificant person above me, the man who loved her for almost 3 decades and our children. Is there anything else you want to add? When I came to myself, I saw that she was crying, burying her face in her hands. Please, Jason, I understand I made a terrible mistake, but please don't insult me like that. I am deeply sorry. Is there any way I can make it up to you? Let's stick to the facts. I'm not name-calling, I'm just stating the truth. You've been lying since you started having an affair with someone else. You cheated and behaved inappropriately. The evidence of this is clearly visible on the video. So, please explain why I shouldn't call you names. And as for regret, it seems like the only thing you regret is getting caught. You didn't look remorseful when you were with someone else. I felt my heart racing, and I had to calm myself down before I had a heart attack. When I looked at Annie, she was crying in the fetal position. I told myself to stay calm and just explain to her what I could do before I left. Annie, I want you to understand your options right now. Roger is currently preparing the divorce papers. You'll receive them next week and should take them to a lawyer for review. I think my offer is fair, half share in the house, half of the retirement accounts, and $5,000 a month for a year. You have 2 weeks to sign before I go to court, where I will show the video to the public, including your children and parents. The decision is yours. I'm already leaving, so please refrain from contacting me. I don't want to communicate with you, whether it's SMS or email. If you see me in the city, please go the other way because I don't even want to see you. Is that clear? With that, I got up, went upstairs, gathered my clothes, and headed to my car. I'll have someone take the rest of my things. You can stay here until the divorce is finalized. I can't stand being in this house after what you did to me. I paused, looked back at my house where I had lived for 20 years, and then slammed the door behind me, leaving her in tears on the couch. I immediately headed to the apartment that my secretary Sally had prepared for me in recent years. I've started including 4 or 5 furnished apartments in every new project that my company has worked on. These apartments were intended for short-term rental by managers since there are many foreign companies operating in the area. Managers from foreign offices often came here for extended periods. Such apartments have become very popular among these companies. Luxury apartments in this complex are usually rented for 4 times more than the rest. I never imagined that I would live in one of them. After entering the house, I dropped my bags in the hallway and sank into a chair in the living room, feeling empty. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, annoyed. I checked it and saw 12 missed calls, 8 from Annie, 2 from my daughter Savannah, and 1 from each of my sons. What part of "don't call me" does Annie not understand? I muttered to myself. I ignored all of Annie's calls before answering my daughter's call. "Daddy, are you okay?" Savannah asked. "Hey baby, I'm fine. What happened?" I replied. "Mom called about an hour ago looking for you. She was very upset, and when I asked her what was the matter, she said that you had a fight and left the house and didn't answer her calls." Savannah expressed her concern. "That's not like you," she added. After thinking about the situation, I realized that the boys were most likely calling for the same reason. "I can't guarantee that nothing happened," I confessed to Savannah. "The truth is that your mother and I didn't have a fight. She decided we didn't meet her standards and started dating another man, sneaking him into the house for secret lunches. It's not really a fight, but rather a decision to divorce her and never see her again. She thinks she can justify all this if I just listen to her, but I refused to listen to her lies. I yelled, and when she burst into tears on the other end, I took a break to collect my thoughts. It was clear I couldn't handle the situation. Having regained control of my emotions, I continued an open conversation with Savannah. I stressed that this situation concerns only Annie and me and that I don't want it to affect her relationship with her mother. After finishing my conversation with Savannah, I informed Mark and Jeff about the situation. Both of them, like me, were angry with their mother, but I believe that in the end, they will reconcile with her. But before everything calms down, she will have to endure a lot of anger on their part. In the following weeks, everything was relatively calm. I focused on work, spent time at the gym, and tried to keep myself busy so as not to dwell on the chaos in my life outside of work. I only talked to the kids and Katie Mason. I often talked with the children, the boys discussed school and sports, and Savannah told me about her life. My daughter mentioned that Annie wasn't doing well, so Katie Mason and I decided to discuss her during our weekly Monday lunch meetings. Despite the risky nature of our conversations, we both needed a trusted person who understood our situations. While I was determined to move forward with the divorce from Annie, Katie hesitated because it could complicate relations with her children and husband, Sam. She often resorted to me as an assistant in decision-making. On the last day before the deadline, Roger informed me that Annie had signed the papers and sent them back to his office. All that remained was to wait 3 months for the court to finalize the agreement. Annie asked me to talk to her before going to court. Although I resisted, Roger insisted that everything would be easier in court if I agreed to meet with her. He mentioned that most judges would not favor a spouse who decided to end a 25-year marriage without going through any consultations and having an honest conversation with the other party. In the end, I agreed to meet with my wife, but only when I felt ready. Over the next month, I returned to my usual lifestyle, which I had led before meeting Annie. I worked hard, played sports actively, and socialized a lot. Due to business commitments, I had to go out of town for a few nights every week, often spending evenings having dinner and drinks in bars. This routine, which I had followed for years, included eating, drinking, chatting with customers, and calling Annie and the children before retiring to my room. Although sometimes there was harmless flirting with female regulars, it never went beyond that. I must admit that after Annie's infidelity led to the breakdown of our marriage, I started drinking more than usual on trips. An innocent flirtation turned into something more serious and regrettable during my travels. I entered into relationships with several women, regardless of their relationship status. I was angry at Annie for her actions and resentful of Sam for interfering in my marriage. But at the same time, I found myself doing the same to others, desperately trying to numb the pain. I tried everything, but nothing helped. During this tumultuous time, I found solace in weekly lunches with Katie Mason. We even went on a few random outings together, seeking comfort in each other's company. Although we didn't label our time together as dates, it was a nice change from empty one-night stands. Although our relationship wasn't physical, I found myself lingering too long after our goodnight kisses. One Monday evening, Katie and I went out to dinner. I noticed she was unusually quiet, just pushing around her food on her plate. It was clear something was bothering her. Eventually, she paused and met my gaze. "Jason," she began, "we've been spending time together lately, and although we haven't officially labeled it, it's been like dating. I sense a certain tension between us when we say goodbye. It seems like we both want something more than just a kiss, but we're hesitant to take it further." She gathered her thoughts before expressing her uncertainty about giving things another chance with Sam, her high school sweetheart. Some days she wanted to try again, while others, she wanted to start anew. Despite her indecision, she admitted she still had needs as a woman and suggested that I likely had similar needs. I nodded in understanding as she thought, then asked if I was willing to help meet those needs. It might seem unconventional, but I could never imagine picking up a stranger for something like this. "Since you're my friend and I trust you, I'm open to considering this option. Please don't worry about offending me if you decline," he'll understand completely. I think this could be a beneficial experience for both of us." Her question caught me off guard, and I took a moment to carefully consider my response. "I'm flattered that you trust me enough to ask for help. My hesitation doesn't mean I'm not interested. You've always been beautiful to me since the day you walked into my office. My initial instinct is to say yes, but I need some time to think through the implications before giving a definite answer. Can I call you tomorrow morning with my decision?" She appreciated my honesty and understanding. "Of course," she replied. "I understand it's a significant request, and I fully respect whatever decision you make." I didn't know who else to turn to. After our meal, we chatted a bit more before it was time to part ways. I assured her I would give her an answer first thing in the morning. Deep down, I knew I wanted to say yes. I had been dreaming about being with her for weeks. I just had to convince myself that I could handle it, and then leave. I realized that if she decides to stay in her marriage, then I won't be able to see her anymore, not even for lunch. As I was returning home that evening, it occurred to me that maybe this decision could be beneficial for both of us. I decided to call her, and when she answered, I introduced myself as Jason. Having agreed with her request, I added that there was one condition. There was a moment of silence before she cautiously inquired about the condition. "If we meet to make love, at my place or yours, it might just seem like a casual one-night stand. I need a deeper connection with you to feel comfortable in the future. So here's my suggestion. I think a change of scenery will benefit both of us. If you agree to leave with me for the weekend, I won't mind if, at some point during our trip, we have an intimate relationship. We could leave on Friday and come back on Monday." "Wow, I agree," she replied. "I was sure you would refuse. I'll tell Sam that I need a break to clear my head and ask him to look after the boys for a few days. What time should we leave? I'll text you the details tomorrow, Katie." I can't wait for this. The next day at work, Sally booked all the weekend tickets for me, and I sent Katie a message asking her to meet me at the airport at noon on Friday. Despite her questions, I kept it a secret. After a long week of waiting, Friday finally arrived, and I found myself waiting in front of the terminal. Scanning the crowd, I saw that she was approaching me in a stylish outfit, skinny faded jeans, boots, and a tight sweater that accentuated her curves. "You look incredible. I'll be the envy of all the men at this airport." As soon as we boarded our flight, I praised her. She hugged me tightly and whispered in my ear, "You won't make the plane, mister," she teased. "So, what's the surprise? Where are you taking me, Mr. Winters?" I just smiled and handed her the ticket. To her surprise, the ticket was for New York. "I've always wanted to go there," she exclaimed. "Well, Mrs. Mason, you will be pleased to know that we have reservations at several wonderful restaurants for the next 3 nights and tickets to the Broadway play Hamilton tomorrow night," I informed her. With her bag in hand, we checked into the hotel together, both looking forward to the upcoming adventure. After a pleasant flight, we arrived at LaGuardia Airport and took a taxi to our favorite hotel located opposite Central Park, which had become our best choice. After checking into the hotel around 5 o'clock in the evening, we settled into a room with a picturesque view of the park. After unpacking and getting ready for dinner, we headed to the restaurant where we had a table reserved for 7 o'clock in the evening. Fortunately, the restaurant was only a 10-minute walk from our hotel, which gave us plenty of time to spare. As I was looking at the city and tying my tie, she suddenly came up to me, turned around, and wrapped me in a warm hug. "Well, Mr. Winters," she began, "I asked you for a small favor, but you exceeded all my expectations. It's just unbelievable." I smiled, pulling her closer. "Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that you've just earned yourself the girlfriend experience for this weekend." "That's exactly what I was hoping for, Mrs. Mason," I replied softly, bending down to kiss her gently. After a while, I pulled away. "Maybe we should go to dinner before we get too carried away," I suggested half-jokingly. Otherwise, he'll just have to throw you on the bed and eat you for dinner. We walked hand in hand to the nearest restaurant, soaking up the sights and sounds of the city along the way. The food was as good as I remembered, and after dessert and wine, which was probably more than it should have been, we returned to the hotel. When we entered the room, I could feel how nervous he was. He took my hands in his and looked into my eyes, assuring me that he would never force me to do anything I didn't like. It didn't matter if I wanted to explore the city as tourists or fulfill my initial request, he just wanted me to relax and enjoy the weekend, no pressure, just pure pleasure. He led me to the window and put his arm around my waist as we looked out at the stunning cityscape. This weekend is dedicated only to you. I want you to experience new sensations and just relax while I take care of everything. Let's enjoy the food, sights, entertainment, and art of the city together. And if you're interested in having a casual relationship with a friend, they'll be happy to do that. Tears welled up in my eyes as I expressed my desire to go through with it, needing it more than he could ever understand. I admitted that I was nervous. I had only been with one man before, and I felt inadequate after our relationship ended. He reassured me gently, we both feel insecure in different ways, but their actions do not define our worth. They should have communicated with us instead of looking for solutions outside the relationship. If anyone is inadequate, it's them. Enough about them, let's just enjoy the present moment and our time together for the next few days. He kissed me gently on the neck, right behind my ear. I closed my eyes and leaned against him, tilting my head in invitation. Now, let's hear the story from Katie's point of view. Yes, it's an amazing feeling, I thought, closing my eyes and leaning back in his arms. With his left hand, he gently brushed my hair aside, causing goosebumps to run down my spine. He continued to shower soft kisses on the top of my dress, and his hand slid down my sides, lightly touching the sides of my chest before dropping to my hips. I pulled him closer, pressed my lips to his, and gently explored his mouth with my tongue. Pulling him towards me with all my strength, I then pulled away, suggesting that he take off his annoying clothes while I went to freshen up. Closing the door behind me, I stared at my reflection in the mirror, wondering if I should follow through with my plan. After thinking about it for a while, I firmly confirmed my decision. I had no idea what kind of surprise awaited me when I left the bathroom. When I entered, Jason was just sorting out his wardrobe, but when he heard the sound of the door opening, he quickly turned to me. "Oh my God," I sighed in surprise. A stunningly handsome man stood in front of me, radiating confidence as he approached, pulling me to him and kissing me passionately. When he finally pulled away, he looked into my eyes and remarked, "I think someone is overdressed. Let's change that, okay?" Without thinking, I turned around, and he quickly unzipped my dress, letting it fall to the floor. Jason sat back down on the bed, desire in his eyes. I stood in front of Jason in just a bra and panties, a little embarrassed about my excess weight, but Jason didn't seem to mind, looking at me with admiration. "You're so beautiful, Katie," he said, pushing me closer to the bed. When I came up, he pulled me to him, wrapping his arms around me. I buried my face in his neck, kissing and caressing his skin, then kneeling down, moved to his chest. I showered him with soft kisses, moving down his body before continuing to kiss his toned abs. Teasing him was almost unbearable, but fortunately, he was gentle. When we were done, we both rolled over onto our backs, trying to catch our breath, exhausted. I rolled over on my side, and the last thing I felt before falling asleep was Jason's arm wrapped around me and his hand pressed against me. It was a soothing feeling. I must have slept soundly because when I woke up, I found Jason kissing my neck and his hand caressing my leg. I got up to take a shower, leaving him in bed. As I was finishing, Jason surprised me by joining me in the shower. I could tell by his smile that he hadn't come just to wash up. "Don't you ever get tired?" I asked. "Not when a beautiful girl like you is around," he replied. Soon, he made me lean over the bench in the shower, making love to me. It didn't take us long to reach the peak this time. After that, we washed each other thoroughly and dressed for breakfast. The rest of the day was filled with exploring the city, having a delicious dinner, and watching the amazing Hamilton show. When we finally returned to the room after midnight, we were still under the impression of what we had experienced. Slowly, we undressed each other, collapsed into bed, and made love 3 more times before falling asleep, completely satisfied and exhausted. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of the shower running and realized that Jason had just entered the room. When the phone rang, curious about who was calling us, I hesitated before picking up. "Hello." I froze, not knowing whether to answer, but then I answered anyway. The voice on the other end asked for Jason Winters, to which I replied, "No, wait. Jason is in the shower right now, but I can take a message." "Actually, could you call him? It's his daughter calling about a family matter, and I need to talk to him urgently," the caller insisted. "Sure, let me go get him," I said, heading for the bathroom and feeling terrified that they might be caught. "Jason, your daughter is calling. She said there's an emergency in your family, she needs to talk to you immediately," I informed him. I noticed the grimace on his face when he found out that his daughter had discovered us together. "It looks like she didn't know we were here," I assured him, promising to support him. Now, let's look at the situation from Jason's point of view. I quickly wrapped a towel around my waist, feeling awkward about being naked in a hotel room with someone. I walked over to the bed, sat up, grabbed the phone, and glanced at Katie. I took a deep breath before answering. "Hello, Savannah." "Hello, Daddy." "Yes, honey," I replied. "What's the matter?" "Daddy, it's Mark. He had an accident." "Oh no, how is he?" I asked. "He's going to be fine, but he's in serious condition. He has a concussion, broken ribs, and a leg that will have to be operated on tomorrow." I assured her that I would arrange a flight as soon as possible and asked her for the hospital and room number. "I'll let you know the details of my flight as soon as I have them, okay, Dad?" "Hey, Savannah, how's your mother doing?" "We're doing fine. We miss you very much and need your presence. I'll be there soon. Please be careful and give me the flight information. By the way, Dad, who was the woman answering the phone?" "Oh no," I thought. "Well, it's a long story, and I think it's better to discuss it in person. I'll tell you everything when I see you. Take care of yourself. Goodbye." I quickly brought Katie up to speed and explained that I needed to find a flight to get home today. Despite my offer to stay and enjoy the city for one more day since the room had already been paid for, she insisted on flying back with me. Fortunately, I managed to find 2 seats on a direct flight that would take us home by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We hurriedly finished dressing and packing to go to the airport. When the plane took off, Katie put her hand on my knee and rested her head on my shoulder. "I feel so sorry for Mark," she said. "He's going to be fine, he's a tough guy," I reassured her. "And I'm sorry about our weekend. I had a great time. I hope you got everything you needed from it." Katie insisted that I shouldn't worry about her and joked, "I just asked you to scratch my itch, and you certainly did." Looking back, I realized that maybe I should have warned Katie that my doctor friend gave me a sample of Cialis before our trip, but I assured her, I don't need Cialis to do the job. I was determined to make a positive impression, and it certainly worked. However, on Friday evening, there was a problem when my arousal did not subside, which made me worry about the warnings in commercials about seeking medical help for prolonged arousal. Fortunately, the problem resolved itself when we boarded the 90-minute flight home, where we both slept most of the time. It seems like I'm not as energetic as I used to be because I was exhausted. I woke up as soon as the wheels hit the ground, and Katie and I hurriedly packed up our things and said goodbye to each other. I assured her that I would keep her informed of Mark's affairs, and we agreed to talk later in the week. We both needed time to reflect on the events in New York and decide on further actions. After finding my car, I went to the hospital to check on Mark, knowing that it would not be easy. I was nervous about seeing Annie for the first time in 2 months and didn't know what to say or how to behave. I realized that I would have to confront Savannah and explain why her father was in a New York hotel room with a woman she didn't know anything about. But then I had an epiphany. I needed to put all the drama aside for a while and prioritize my son, who needed me. After that, I had to go to Annie and deal with unresolved issues and emotions when I caught her with Sam. I vented my anger by yelling at her. I decided to cut off all communication with her and tried to boost my self-esteem by arranging one-night stands while traveling. Despite trying to move on and start a relationship with Katie, I still couldn't find peace. Savannah was the only one who finally sorted out all the problems with Annie and put an end to our relationship, not allowing me to move on. I headed to Mark's room, summoning all my courage before opening the door. As I approached, I felt uneasy. How could I feel uneasy about meeting my own family? Come on, Jason, just relax and be yourself, I thought. With my last breath, I plucked up the courage and opened the door. Savannah! I exclaimed, running up to me and hugging me tightly. I'm so glad you're here. I returned the hug, feeling grateful for her warmth. Looking around the room, I noticed my son Jeff sitting in one of the chairs. I smiled at him. What, don't you hug the old man? I teased. Hi, Dad, he replied. When I went to his chair, he stood up and hugged me too. It looks like Mark will be out of action for a while. I think now, when you come to school, you can invite your beloved son to a golf game, right? He joked. Yes, I grinned. I guess I won't have to take Mark with me so he won't be jealous. I turned to Mark's bed, thinking about how we should include him in the process when he recovers. It seemed that he was sleeping at the moment. Annie was sitting next to him, just as I expected. It was obvious that I was making her nervous. She didn't even lift her head to look at me. If we were going to get through the next few days, I knew I would have to take the pressure off. I walked over to the bed next to her. Well, Annie, how's our boy? Well, it's not too bad at the moment, but he scared us a lot yesterday, she replied. We gathered in Mark's room, reminiscing about how the children grew up and remembering the wild antics they staged. The initial tension dissipated, and everyone began to relax. By 7 o'clock in the evening, I asked everyone to go home. I told Savannah and Jeff to go back to school, assuring them that either their mother or I would let them know as soon as Mark was out of surgery. I also sent Annie home, noticing her fatigue and not feeling ready to be alone with her. The next day, Mark's surgery was successful. A few days later, he was discharged and allowed to return home. Annie and I helped him settle into his room. Although returning to the house brought back painful memories, I promised myself not to give up for Mark's sake. After making sure he was comfortable, I said goodbye to him and promised to visit the next day. As I was leaving, Annie stopped me, reminding me of our agreement to discuss the past before the divorce was finalized. With the court date rapidly approaching, I reluctantly admitted that she was right. Okay, I guess I've put it off enough, I mused. I'll come by on Saturday morning and listen to everything you have to say. How about 8 in the morning? Suits me, Annie suggested. See you then. I spent the next few days working and preparing for our conversation. Katie and I met for dinner on Friday night. We discussed the past weekend, and I wanted to make sure she was okay with everything that happened. Fortunately, she assured me that she was. We had come to a mutual agreement that neither of us was in the mood for a serious relationship at the moment, but we both recognized that casual dating and intimate encounters were still possible. To confirm our agreement, we returned to my apartment and made passionate love for several hours, like two young college students, before she had to go to the children. As promised, I arrived at my former residence at 8 o'clock in the morning. Annie met me at the door with a big breakfast already prepared. After Mark and I finished eating, he went to his room to finish his missed lessons, and Annie and I went out to the patio to get some privacy. She seemed nervous and took a few minutes to collect her thoughts before speaking. "First of all, I want to apologize," she began. "I'm sorry about what happened with Sam. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I'm sorry for all the lies. I must admit that I have come to realize that I am to blame for everything that happened. On the other hand, you don't deserve any of this. I feel the need to give some kind of explanation for my actions, although I want to clarify that I am not trying to justify what I did." She paused, watching my reaction. I was silent, allowing her to continue. It was her moment to speak out, but I wasn't ready to forgive her easily. Despite this, her apologies held a certain meaning for me. I was hesitant to fully accept this idea. I had already forgiven her a few weeks ago, but it was more for my own well-being than anything else. Anger consumed me to such an extent that at times I felt physically ill. It wasn't until Katie convinced me to consider forgiving Annie that I really began to think about it. She helped me understand that forgiving her does not mean justifying her actions, rather, it is a way to rid myself of the burden of resentment. When Katie saw that I was still hesitating, she urged me to keep an open mind. Over the past few months, I have been meeting with a psychologist to figure out the reasons behind my actions. Much of what I'm sharing here comes from our conversations. As expected, the conversation eventually turned to assigning blame, whether to me, my parents, or the children. Despite my doubts, I listened patiently for an hour as she explained her thoughts. Though I believed her perspective was flawed, I allowed her to express her beliefs, which seemed to bring her some clarity, at least in her own mind. The beginning of this story dates back to when the boys left for college. Their absence left her feeling isolated and depressed for 2 decades. She devoted most of her energy to raising the children, but now that they have grown up and become independent, she faced feelings of loneliness and deepening depression, which she had always struggled with to some extent. Meanwhile, I was absorbed in my career and didn't have much time for it. The therapist advised her that when children leave the nest, parents should redirect their attention to other sources of self-realization to find satisfaction. While I found satisfaction in my work, she felt that work was merely a way to pass the time, leaving her feeling bored and isolated. That's when Sam suggested chatting during lunch dates. She admitted it was inappropriate, but his attentiveness filled the void of loneliness she felt. Over time, their conversations turned to more personal topics, including complaints about me and Katie. On a Wednesday during a client event, Sam walked her to her car after a few drinks and unexpectedly kissed her. She kissed him back but stopped when guilt overwhelmed her. From then on, their communication followed the usual pattern. They continued to meet at lunch, exchanged kisses, and eventually had a kissing session in Sam's car. The inevitable happened when they visited Katie and me, and it became evident that they had crossed the line. Despite her claims that it was a purely physical relationship devoid of emotional attachment, the truth was painfully clear. She felt lonely, and he was giving her the validation and attention she craved. The physical aspect of their affair was not as important to her as the excitement of breaking the rules. Despite the fact that she still loved me and wanted to restore our marriage, her explanations were ignored. When she finished speaking, I paused to collect my thoughts and then asked 2 questions. Did she cheat on me for the first time, and did she continue to date Sam after I left home? Without needing to hear her response, I already knew the answers. I just wanted to test her honesty. "Jason, please believe me, it was a one-time thing," she begged. Surprisingly, I decided to believe her. In fact, I hired a private investigator to look into her and Sam's story. Katie and I provided access to our phones and bank accounts, and I even allowed the investigator to view Annie's laptop. A few weeks before Annie and Sam visited our house for the first time, he found nothing suspicious on any of Annie's devices or in our bank accounts. Despite this, he decided to believe Annie, and he had no reason to suspect her of anything else. Moving on to the next question, they discussed how to behave with Katie and me, exchanging messages several times. We haven't seen each other in person since the day this video was recorded. Obviously, honesty is not a priority here. I know for a fact that she has seen him in our house twice since I left. So, Annie, erase the thing. I know this is a complete lie. Sam was at the house twice in a row on Friday evenings after I left and spent the whole night here both times. A sense of panic showed on her face. Do you remember how Bill Stevenson came to remove the cameras after I talked to you? She nodded in agreement. Did it ever occur to you that I might have sent him back to fix them while you were at work next week? Did you really think I was naive enough to believe that after all this time, when you dumped me and Katie kicked him out of the house, the two of you wouldn't turn to each other for comfort? I'm really sorry. Please let me clarify. I was scared and lonely. You and Katie left us, and we just needed someone to talk to. Tears were streaming down her cheeks as she spoke. I know you weren't just talking. Cameras don't lie. Unlike you, I can listen to the truth, but I will not tolerate lies. Two mistakes don't seem like a big problem, but dishonesty for me is a reason to refuse. Even at work, I can forgive mistakes, but lying is unforgivable. I heard everything I wanted to hear. I have fulfilled my promise to give you the opportunity to speak out, but it is obvious that you are not ready for full frankness. Therefore, I recommend that we get our divorce in the nearest court and move on. I have collected enough evidence to create an adult website, so I advise you not to delay this process. Goodbye, Annie. Following my advice, Annie agreed to arrange our divorce in 2 weeks. The following week, we both focused on Savannah's college graduation. We were both very happy for her. As a graduation gift, we organized a 2-week cruise around Europe for her, planning that after that, she would join my team full-time. But things went awry when a private investigator revealed more disturbing information about Sam. Despite Annie considering herself unique, she was actually his 4th lover in as many years. The investigator also found out that Sam had relationships with 2 other women. This revelation was enough for Katie to finally decide to divorce him. I couldn't resist sending Annie a copy of the investigator's report along with my handwritten note. I advise you to read this report. It turns out that you may not be as unique as you thought. In addition, you should check for sexually transmitted diseases. His connections with 3 women suggest that this man is not too picky. Despite this revelation, Katie and I maintained our relationship over the following months. I had genuine feelings for her, and I believe they were mutual. After the divorce, we decided not to rush things until our past wounds were healed. She had many attractive qualities, and I treasured the time we spent together. She was not only pleasant company but also delightful in the bedroom. It was the perfect combination of companionship and intimacy. Thinking about all that she brought to my life, I realized that I had one unfinished business: finding a way to get back at Sam without landing behind bars. I came up with a brilliant idea and decided to share it with Katie. I was hesitant to do anything that could hurt her because she was very dear to me, but she grinned and said that her only regret was that she couldn't see the reaction on his face. A private detective investigating Sam's activities found out that every Friday night, he visited a certain bar and then returned to his apartment. About 2 weeks after Sam and Katie's divorce was finalized, I took one of my project managers with me on a Friday night to visit Sam at the bar. Bob was about the same height as me but weighed at least a lot more. When we entered the bar, we noticed Sam exactly where the private detective had described, in a booth by the window, sitting alone. I approached him from behind, and Bob approached from the other side. When we reached his booth, we both squeezed in, me on one side of Sam and Bob on the other. Well, old friend, I greeted him. I was overcome with a feeling of horror when I asked, "Do you remember me?" His expression changed when he realized that I was Annie's husband. His eyes widened, and his face paled. He quickly panicked, "I don't want any problems. I apologize for what happened in the past. Can't we just forget about it?" I called the waitress over and said, "My friend would like to buy us a drink. Could you bring us 2 of your best bourbons and make them doubles? Because when you're sleeping with a man's wife, it's only fair to offer him a strong drink. The minimum gesture you can make is to buy him a drink." With that, Sam sat down on the bench. You see, Sam, you can't just betray a person like that and not face the consequences. You should thank your lucky stars that I didn't bump into you when I first saw this video. My initial impulse was to rip off your pathetic face and shove it down your throat before you choked. But lucky for you, I don't want to go to jail. So, let me tell you how everything is going to happen from now on. You will never have any contact or enter into a relationship with Annie, and absolutely do not maintain any relationship with her. Do you understand? Yes, sir, he replied obediently. Don't worry about me. I'll go in the opposite direction if I see her walking down the street. Good. Now that we have established this, there is another question. You will never be late, delay, or fail to pay Katie alimony and child support. Is that clear? Yes, sir, quite clearly. I raised my glass and finished the rest of the drink. Rummaging through the bag I had put next to me when I entered the room, I took out a box wrapped in black paper and handed it to Sam. Come on, open it, I said hesitantly. Sam unwrapped the package and found a bottle of Johnny Walker Black Label in it. Perplexed, he asked, I'm not sure I understand. What is it for? I reminded him of my previous comment about buying booze for a man who slept with his wife. He nodded understandingly. Dear friend, after spending some time with your ex-wife in the last few months, I felt it was only fair to make amends to you with a full bottle. Enjoy it. Katie and I have posted videos and photos on various websites where our lying ex-spouses make love. We were amused by this since Annie and Sam now had no jobs. They were fired when they found out about their affair during working hours. Well, now these videos will cause them even more problems in finding a job. A year later, Katie and I exchanged vows and became husband and wife, and I'm happier with her than I've ever been. Sam disappeared in an unknown direction, and Annie is in a social shelter, mopping floors in one of the restaurants. I hope she finally found happiness because, as she said, she was lonely after the children left for college. Now, Annie has a very busy life in a social shelter.